Hi everyone, this is Vancy, the fancy van. Come on in and I'll give you a little tour. Vancy is a luxury build designed for three things: remote work, stealth parking, and full-time van life. I work remote, so I can work from anywhere as long as I have internet, and I love to travel. So when I got the idea to explore van life, it was always with the intention of working from the van most of the time. So I had to have a comfortable ergonomic setup, and that's why I put a sit-stand desk in my van. I used to get a little bit of back pain and hip pain years ago before van life, and then I experimented until I found this setup, which includes an electric adjustable height desk by Fully, an elevated monitor with big movable monitor arm, and my perch stool, which keeps me upright and pitched forward for better hip and spine posture. And since I got this set up many years ago, I've almost never had hip or back pain. So I had to have it in the van, and I put it in, and it has been fantastic. I work from here 5 days a week. For variety, or if I have a guest, there are 2 additional workstations. The Laguna table, which is also height adjustable. And this is so over the top, I have to laugh. The bed, it turns into a recliner that doubles as a really nice reclined workstation. This is probably the most self-indulgent part of the entire build, although it wasn't nearly the costliest. The recliner has been a lifesaver for those low energy days when I want to get some work done, but I just can't bring myself to be vertical. And it's also really nice for lounging and reading at a campsite with those back doors open for that iconic Instagram photo. While traveling, I would tether to my cell phone's hotspot for internet. If the cell reception wasn't good, I would turn on the WeBoost signal booster, and that would often bump my cell signal up from 2 bars to 3 or 1 bar to 2, and that was helpful. This van was also designed for stealth parking. I love to travel and to visit new cities, and traveling in the van to new places allowed me to sleep in some really nice upscale city neighborhoods, and I never paid for a hotel, not once. And often I would explore a beautiful neighborhood, visit the shops, get dinner and a cocktail, and then just go to bed right there. No need for a designated driver ever. I found that I could park anywhere that a car could park overnight, and no one ever bothered me as long as I was being discreet and didn't stay for more than one night. Because I wanted stealth, I chose a plain white van, which makes it look like a commercial van, and I avoided any obvious giveaways, so no awning or other indicators that someone might be living inside of it. I liked that for stealth as well as for safety because I was a solo female traveler. For the same reason, I chose a van with no windows except for the cab. Although windows are really nice, they do make it look like a camper, and I knew that I'd mostly have them blocked off anyways for privacy. And anytime that I was not in stealth mode, for example at a campsite or at the beach, well then I could just open the doors. So I chose a van without windows for stealth, privacy, not to mention soundproofing, heat insulation, and security, and I've been very happy with this decision. But I did want some natural light without forsaking privacy and stealth, so I opted for 2 skylights in the roof of the van. And this was an absolute game changer. I do not think I could have lived for 2 years in a metal box if I hadn't had them. They allowed me to discreetly take in natural light and even fresh air any time of the day, anywhere I went. The exception was if I was around tall buildings, because then sometimes people in upstairs floor might, if they had the right angle, have been able to see down through the skylights. So in those situations, I would just close the blinds. The skylights open to 3 different levels of openness, and they come with a bug screen and, of course, the blinds to block out the light. When I designed the van with my builder, my intention was that it would be my full-time residence for a year of slow, meandering travel. In fact, I considered naming her the Meander Van, but that's another story. Unlike most van builds, which are designed to be taken on short trips and weekends, and then you return to your big, comfortable house, I knew I'd be spending most of my time in this van. I'd be working in the van, I'd be cooking in the van, sleeping in the van, and hanging out in the van. So it was going to be my full-time tiny home, and it had to feel spacious, comfortable, and not cramped and claustrophobic. For that reason, I made a couple of decisions that really helped the interior feel open. Firstly, I put the bed sideways in the back rather than the long way. This freed up a lot of space for the living area in the front end of the vehicle. But that was going to make the bed a little bit too short, so we added some extra height to the bed by putting in flares by FlareSpace. That involved actually cutting a hole through the sidewalls of the van and installing these flares that stick out just a little from the side of the vehicle, allowing extra headroom for the bed while still maintaining a discreet appearance to the exterior. With the flares, the total length of the bed from head to foot is 6 feet long and 4.5 feet wide. With the bed sideways, that left tons of space in the front half of the vehicle, especially since I chose a 170 wheelbase, so there was plenty of van length to work with for the rest of the build. The front section of the build, which is more than half, includes a long bench for comfortable seating, a big kitchen area with a 6-foot counter, and of course my sit-stand desk. I chose not to do a bathroom stall or shower stall because they just take up so much space inside a van and they make them feel really tight. Instead, I put a Nature's Head compost toilet in a pull-out drawer, and I have an external shower, although most of the time I would just shower at Planet Fitness. And of course, if I was going to be in it full time, I wanted it to be beautiful. So great care was taken to create the kind of space that I'd want to live in. Colors and details were chosen carefully for an elegant appearance, and I went with a lot of light colors. I find that dark colors are a bit more stain resistant, but they close down a small space. So I chose light colors and white cabinets to open the space up and make it feel more spacious. The walls are covered in an automotive suede in a very pretty light beige that has proven surprisingly stain resistant. The build was made on a 2020 Mercedes Sprinter, which was purchased brand new for the build and custom built by Craft Auto Works in Reno. It has a 170 wheelbase, which is the medium length for Sprinters, and a high roof for tall people, which I am not, but it's good to have. It has 4-wheel drive, which apparently Mercedes is no longer making 4x4 Sprinters, and they're all going to be all-wheel drive moving forward, so that's a nice, unique feature that this van has. Apparently 4x4s have been hard to find with Sprinters, and I think even more rare to find one with a 170 wheelbase. It's a rare combination. I actually got the 4x4 because I wanted to go skiing and have good control in the snow while driving. It gets 16 miles per gallon, which is pretty good for a larger vehicle. I did the math and it cost me about 30 cents per mile to drive the van, assuming a diesel cost of $5 per gallon. Diesel engines are great because they last 300 to 500,000 miles, unlike regular gas engines, which usually break down around 200,000. I found that the 170 wheelbase was big enough to be spacious and comfortable, but still short enough that it was easy to drive, and I never had a hard time finding a place to park. The van also has amazing cameras that let you see behind the vehicle as well as 360 degrees around the vehicle, which is great because there are no rear windows. So those cameras are really very helpful when backing up. The van is all electric, no propane, with a full AC/DC system. It has a large battery bank that charges while I drive. Then I can draw on the battery bank for my electricity. I found that with light electrical use, a full battery would last me at least 3 days. It was pretty good. Most of the time, I would just drive about 15 to 20 minutes per day, and that would just give the battery a little boost, and I always had enough power. It was pretty rare that I ran out. The exception would be if I was using a lot of air conditioning in very hot weather or a lot of high-powered appliances, like my Instant Pot pressure cooker, which would drain the battery faster. And in those cases, I just needed to find ways to get my battery back up more frequently. If I was staying with friends or family or at a campsite, I would plug into shore power using an extension cord, and that would not only give me electricity while I was plugged in, but it would also charge the battery while I was plugged in, so I could unplug, a certain amount of time later and have a full battery. I chose not to get solar because after putting in an air conditioner and 2 skylights in the roof, there just wasn't going to be enough room for that to make sense and be worth the installation cost. But the van does come with an option to attach an external solar panel. As long as my batteries have some charge, they power the lights, the air conditioner, the fridge, and other built-in features. And then if I want to plug in an appliance like my laptop or a water boiler, I just turn on the inverter and that activates the AC power. There are also plenty of USB outlets throughout the van powered by the DC system, where I charge my phone and other USB charging devices. I did lots of cooking in the van. I have a special diet and I like to eat very, very healthy and carefully, and so it was important to me that I be able to cook while traveling. It's really easy to eat poorly while traveling, and I didn't want to do that. So me and my tiny home, we did tons of cooking. There's a sturdy cutting board over the sink and an electric induction cooktop that fits 1 pan. So I did a lot of 1-pan cooking. I also had an Instant Pot, but that took a lot of power, so I tended to use it only before a long drive, so then I could replenish my battery with the drive. There's a 22-gallon freshwater tank, and there's actually space in the build to add a second 22-gallon water tank, so then there would be 44 gallons of fresh water. There's also 2 water filters, one on the hose that I used to fill the water tank and a second water filter under the sink that's built in and that needs to be changed periodically. And between these two, I never had water that tasted plasticky, which I understand is not always the case in van life, so that was really nice. You might have noticed there's a giant sink in this build, 28-inch stainless steel sink with a hose sprayer and a water heater under the sink. So you can turn on hot water if you want hot water for your dishes or whatever. I loved my giant sink. I would store a little wash bin under the cutting board where I would hold dirty dishes until I was ready to wash them. And it's not every van build that allows you to put off your dishwashing. And then I'd let them dry in the removable dish drain. Water is collected in a 22-gallon gray water tank under the van. I told my builder I wanted white cabinets, and he said he didn't recommend painting wood white because in such a small space, you're always bumping into things, and the paint would always be chipped and scratched and needing touch-ups. So instead, he suggested durable white Formica cabinets, which is what I went with. And these have been really very sturdy, and I have to say, they will hurt you more than you will ever hurt them. And after 2 years, they still look basically new. The butcher block cabinets can be sanded and oiled to refinish them when needed if there are any stains. And the kitchen counter is 6 feet from end to end. And if you line up the height of the sit-stand desk for extra space, then it's even longer. There is a top-loading Dometic fridge under the bench with 2 separate compartments and the option to set their temperature separately. So one side can be set to fridge temperature while the other side is set to freezer. As I mentioned, for the bathroom, I went with a Nature's Head compost toilet. And what this does is it separates liquids and solids. You have to kind of aim a little bit, but the liquids go in the front and the solids go in the back. Liquids are collected in a jug that can be dumped in any toilet, and the solids go into a collection area that you fill with peat moss that magically composts your poop. Just be sure to rotate the spinner on a regular basis. For this build, we also added a vent to pull any odors out of the van, and with all of that in place, I never had any issues with any unpleasant odors from the compost toilet. There's also an outdoor shower with hot water that can be used while camping, but most of the time, if I didn't have easy access to a shower at the gym, for example, I would totally just climb into my giant sink and hose off in there. It's big enough to fit a small person inside, that's why I chose it, and it has this long, flexible hose with a shower sprayer, and my builder made sure that it was sufficiently weight-bearing for me, but bear in mind that I am 5'2", 100 pounds, so your mileage may vary. When I was just hanging out in the van, I spent a lot of time just sitting on the long bench, which is over 6 feet long and about 2 feet wide. It has 2 separate removable flat cushions with washable covers, and it doubles as a spare bed. You just move the table out of the way, and I've slept comfortably on it, and as have many guests. The Laguna table, when loosened, can be moved in all directions for many different positions and can be locked down in any position or adjusted higher or lower or detached from the bench entirely and removed. Sometimes I also like to sit on the bench and watch a movie, and I can connect my laptop to the monitor of the desk and then swivel the monitor arm to face the bench and bed, and then I've got my own little movie theater. There are 2 long track lights on the ceiling with remote control that includes a dimmer to adjust brightness and adjustable temperature for warm or cool lighting. Also, there's 1 track light under the sink, which is great for cooking. It's touch sensitive and adjustable for brightness as well. And often around bedtime, I would just use this 1 light at a very low setting, and I thought that that was perfect for bedtime. Lastly, the storage area under the bed lights up, which makes it easier to see what you're doing in there when you're trying to find something. This is an all-weather van with pneumatic cooling 12-volt roof mount air conditioner in the living area. It doesn't require the engine to be on to make it work, and there's no generator. The AC just runs off of the battery bank. Of course, that also means that a lot of AC in hot weather will drain the battery faster. There's also an S-bar diesel heater under the passenger seat that blows hot air into the living area. Again, this can be used without turning on the engine, and there's no generator. It runs off of the diesel rather than the battery bank, so it pulls diesel directly from the gas tank. It's pretty cool. I've also found that the skylights work a bit like a greenhouse, and when the weather is just a little chilly, letting the sun blast in through the roof really warms the interior. When I have an electrical hookup at a campsite or at a friend's house, I use a small plug-in space heater that runs off the electricity. Although I wouldn't want to do that on the battery bank because it would just drain my battery much too quickly. And of course, the van is insulated, which helps keep the right temperature on the inside of the vehicle, whether it's hot or cold outside. There is a large storage space under the bed that can fit quite a lot. I've had storage bins, mountain bikes, and occasionally a large dog under there. There are tracks along the floor, so you can strap down any loose items such as storage bins to prevent them from sliding forward while driving. I rarely use this, but it's a good option to have for heavy items. In the spirit of stealth, I wanted to have this underbed storage area be continuous with the van, rather than something I needed to go around the back to open and find. I didn't want to have to, blow my cover every time I needed something from my storage area, so I kept the space under the bed open to the interior, and that way I can just reach down there anytime I want something from there. And if I'm looking for something that's kind of buried deep down there, I can always go around the back for easier access. I put a curtain rod in this area so that a curtain could be hung to keep this area looking nice and neat visually. However, mostly I ended up using the curtain rod to hang my towel to dry. I would also hang items that needed drying on the sliding door using these awesome little heavy-duty hook magnets. And there's no closet, but if I felt like dressing up, I would use a few of these same heavy-duty hook magnets on the rear door and hang some pretty dresses. There's another large storage space above the cab, not to mention all of the storage here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. Oh, and under the desk. And that is Vancy, the fancy van. And I have really loved my time in Vancy, and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Take care.